Old Dreadnoughts used to be the mode in huge Arras-style player counts, non-stop fights, and a real risk and reward situation. Then, a wave of updates changed how it looked, played, and felt. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to fix it and bring it back to its former glory. Let's get into it. Now, we will begin with the first part of the video, the history of Old Dreadnoughts. Before Arras.io Old Dreadnoughts, the game did not have too many players. In fact, it only had around 200 concurrent players at any time, and a video from Gizmic demonstrates this. Arras.io was doing quite well, had classic yet fun modes, and had a stable amount of players. However, everything changed when Old Dreadnoughts released on February 4th, 2023. Event 2023-02-04 Dreadnoughts. This seems oddly familiar. Maybe try going to a portal once you become strong enough to be prepared for what lies on the other side. In fact, the portals seem to reject those that seem unfit and too weak, so try to level up before entering. Many people joined the new mode and played it. Arras.io now had more than 400 concurrent players. You can see the player count in this video by Kangsa. The player count was extremely high and Old Dreadnoughts was frequently played by a lot of people. 3 months later came the first major change to Old Dreadnoughts, the removal of the Medicaid branch and the change level requirement from Dreadnoughts from level 120 to level 150. Keep in mind, this was with the old leveling system, so level 150 was 750k. The growth amount was also nerfed. I will discuss some of these factors later in the video. On May 21st, 2023, Dreads v2 was announced, with sneak peeks posted in the Discord server. The invisible Dreadnought bug and the upgrade bug was fixed here too. On May 28th, 2023, Dreads v2 was released, and Dreads v1 was removed. The community started to cause some unrest relating to the removal of Dreads v1. I was not able to find the specific changelog entry as to when it was added back, but it was added back permanently, and this satisfied the community. Then, on March 22nd, 2024, the color of Old Dreadnoughts were changed to the hexagon color in the theme selected instead of border color. This was one of the first changes that led to the downfall of Old Dreadnoughts, was changing how they looked visually. On April 17th, 2024, the Nexus portal system was applied to Old Dreadnoughts. This resulted in 3 separate servers instead of the single server containing all of the areas, open area, maze area, and forge area. This change was looked upon well by the community as it resulted in less lag. However, personally, I liked the old portal designs and will discuss this later in the video. On May 23rd, 2024, Old Dreadnoughts were growing incredibly fast due to a new update that modified their growth curve, resulting in max size being the size of one maze wall, a lot bigger than before. And then in 2025, hidden by some other updates, on June 27th, 2025, the Old Dreadnoughts map was completely reworked and changed to be a simple maze with many dead ends in the labyrinth, and the removal of the previous corridors, open areas in the corners and in the middle. Rocks were also added to the open area, and the maze area, and the forge area. It appeared to be a bug, but whether or not unintentional, these map changes truly killed the mode. The screenshot of the player count you are seeing right now was taken on August 12th, 2025. So, that is the history of Old Dreadnoughts. And there are a lot of controversial updates that made the community stop playing the mode nearly as much, and now the mode is just a shadow of what it was before. The next section of this video will discuss all the changes that need to happen to the mode to get the community back and make the mode actually fun. For this portion of the video, I will first discuss some minor changes and then move on to the bigger and more pressing issues. The first issue is the colored nest option. This was removed and said to be coming back to secret options, but it never came back. This was important to judge where the end of the middle zone was, so you could farm better as a Dreadnought and avoid drone Dreadnoughts better as a regular tank. The simple fix for this issue is to just add back the colored nest option in secret options. Even if it was buggy, some players liked playing with it and want it back. The next issue is the color of the Dreadnoughts. Currently, they are set to the hexagon color in the options menu. However, this is not the original color of Dreadnoughts and simply just changes how Dreads V1 feels in its core. So I suggest that the Dreadnought color is instead preset to the border color in the options menu. The fix is very simple, just changing the theme color of the Dreadnought. Another issue is that Dreadnoughts that pick the same weapon twice are simply named the weapon upgrade and then 2, Roman numeral 2. An example of this is if you picked Pacifier, then Pacifier, it is instead just Pacifier 2. In the old version of old Dreadnoughts, the name was simply Pacifier. The next change is also pretty simple. I suggest changing the current portal designs to the old portal designs, where the functionality is still the same with the 3 separate servers and transporting you between them, but different visuals to bring back the old look of Dreads V1. Another small yet important change is the server selector. It does not say the TDM mode of the server, so currently the server name is just Old Dreadnoughts, when it should instead be Old Dreadnoughts Open for TDM or Old Dreadnoughts 2 TDM. The final miscellaneous change is to add back the Fallen bots that are meant to represent the Fallen bot from Scenix.io. If the player isn't fighting Dreadnoughts or other players and is just heading towards the middle to find a portal with 0 danger, the gameplay is not very interesting and doesn't provide any kind of difficulty or quick leveling towards the player. I propose that these Fallen bots are added back exactly the way they were before, with incredibly buffed bullet stats but low levels. The next section of the video will deal with map changes to fix the environment of Dreads V1. I will first be discussing the open area. The first variant is the open TDM mode, where players do not have bases and spawn anywhere on the map, along the edges. They should always spawn along the edges, which is what I see to be happening right now, so this doesn't require any changes. As for the TDM maps, 4 TDM has a good layout, with the bases being in the corners. However, 2 TDM is not what it should be. Instead of the bases only taking part of the map on the left and right side, the bases should be on the left and right, with blue on the left and green on the right. The bases should extend fully from the top to the bottom of the left and right edges of the map as well. The open area also has rocks, which never existed in the original Dreadnought mode and adds almost nothing to the gameplay. I suggest that these rocks are removed. The next issue is that the fact that the TDM map is not as big as it was originally. It should be a huge map to allow for many players having fights around the map and also to allow players to farm big shapes in the middle without the fear of a drone Dreadnought always lurking. I suggest that the map has a fixed size instead, a lot larger like the original old Dreadnoughts. Moving on to the maze area. The maze generation has simply just changed from what the Dreadnoughts maze generation is at its core, the corn maze generator. The maze is currently a regular maze that you might see in a mode like Outbreak Maze Squads with a lot more dead ends. It doesn't even have a middle open area for the nest. This kind of generation is bad for the mode because players can easily get trapped by other Dreadnoughts and have no chance of escape. The new maze generation also completely changes how Dreadnoughts is played, and the mode shouldn't be changed when it comes to the unique maze generation that came with Dreadnoughts originally. I suggest that the current maze generation is reverted to the previous state, with 4 carved out open areas in the corners and the carved out open area in the middle. This will help with the feel of the mode and gameplay overall. The forge in its current design is fine. The next issue is shape spawning. In the open area, polygon evolution is a problem. How it used to work was after waiting for quite some time for polygons to evolve, there would be large clusters of alpha pentagons on the edges of the map that Dreadnoughts could farm for a large score boost, and that regular tanks could farm for having a chance against the powerful Dreadnoughts. I propose that the shapes evolve faster and never actually fail to evolve, stopping their attempts forever. In the open area along the edges, this should happen, resulting in large clusters of alpha pentagons every few minutes. The next fix is that shapes spawn in more organized clusters, rather than the randomly placed shapes that exist at the moment, with no visible structure of clusters from what I can tell. Clustering shapes will also give an indirect buff to the Necromancer class tanks, so they can quickly gather their drones by finding these small clusters of shapes that haven't evolved yet. As for the nest, the big polygons, hexagon, septagon, octagon, and nonagon, should be a bit more common. I'd say that they should all be around 1.2 times more common to allow players to have a fighting chance against Dreadnoughts. Polygons should not try to avoid players when spawning. Dreadnoughts need a risk to farm in the nest, otherwise there is zero benefit to farming elsewhere in the map, and you will see Dreadnoughts simply just camping the center of the map, stopping other players from farming. In the maze area, rare polygons are way too common. This results in massive score inflation and Dreadnoughts basically being unkillable because they gain levels way too quickly and get tier 2 Dreadnought almost immediately. This also results in a less fun experience because even though you grow faster, you will complete old Dreadnoughts mode a lot faster. Completing is becoming tier 2 Dreadnought. If a player has to farm and get kills for longer, it will be more worth it to that player to ascend to tier 1 Dreadnought and then become tier 2 Dreadnought after some more killing and farming. I suggest nerfing the rare polygons by 2.5 times. By nerfing the rare shape spawn rates, it will be harder to become Dreadnought, more players will be able to survive and kill Dreadnoughts, and players will feel much more of an accomplishment when they actually do manage to become Dreadnought. Some changes that also need to happen are: shapes need to appear on the leaderboard when they get a kill. Shapes need to grow with score so they are actually big and provide some cover from Dreadnought drones as a regular player. This also helps with the risk factor for Dreadnoughts when they decide to farm in the open area with the everlasting danger of the nest shape spawning on the Dreadnought. The next topic is portal spawning. The issue at the moment is that portals don't spawn in consistent places. Let me explain what I mean. Since the new portal system has came into the game, portals can spawn anywhere around the map, making it take forever for big slow Dreadnoughts to actually move between zones, for example the open area, forge, maze, and for players to see portal spawning on the other side of the map, knowing they have zero chance to make it there on time. Starting with the open area, there should only ever be labyrinth portals spawning, opposed to the current, which is allowing forge and labyrinth portals spawning. And these labyrinth portals should only spawn in the nest. Portals should be alive for 40 seconds and then disappear for 2 minutes. So in total, the portal cycle is 2 minutes and 40 seconds for quick and engaging gameplay. The portal design should also look like the screenshot I'm showing now, with the black center and the white outline, and the white spikes extending from the portal. In the maze area, there should only ever be 2 portals spawned, every 2 minutes for 40 seconds, like in the open area. The open area portal and the forge portal. The open area portal should have the same design I just described above, but teleport people back to the open area. For regular players, if it is a base mode, they get teleported into their base. If it is an open mode, they get teleported around the edges of the map. For Dreadnoughts, they get teleported around the edges of the nest. So if players are inside the nest and farming, they aren't in much danger. If they are on the edge of the nest, they are in danger. In the forge area, there should only ever be 2 portals spawned, and it is a random between 2 maze portals or 1 maze portal and 1 open area portal. The maze portal has the same design and function as the portal in the open area. The open area portal should be like the forge portal, but have a dark green outline instead of a dark blue outline, and should have the same function as the portal that teleports players to the open area from maze. Now, moving on to one of the more controversial topics, Dreadnought balancing, leveling, and growth. We will begin by discussing the balancing and leveling. At the moment, Dreadnoughts become quite large and actually grow to a decent size to a good cap. It can be modified a little bit better. Dreadnoughts should have a larger base size and should grow up to level 320, to the size of a maze wall. The level is obviously subject to change, depending on the exact growth curve used. One issue that resulted in Dreadnoughts being very small is the fact that you can actually become Dreadnought at level 120, which is around 540,000 score. This is absolutely nothing and too easy to achieve. I propose that Dreadnought should be accessed at level 150 for the first tier, which is around 1.02 million score. For the second tier, players should have to achieve level 180, which is around 1.7 million score. Now, for one of the most important sections of the video, Dreadnought rebalancing. For the first Dreadnought, Diplomat, it needs to be nerfed. This Dreadnought has everything. This Dreadnought requires the following: a bullet health nerf of 0.7 times, a bullet damage nerf of 0.9 times, and a reload nerf of 1.12 times. This will make it more balanced so the other Dreadnoughts are better options instead of just pure firepower. The next Dreadnought, Appeaser, needs a nerf. Its bullet health is very weak and the bullet damage is too strong. This Dreadnought requires the following: a bullet health buff of 1.25 times and a bullet damage nerf of 0.8 times. The reload time should also be buffed by a factor of 0.9 times. For the last of the pacifier branch, Peacekeeper, it requires a reload buff. That is all it needs, is a 0.7 times reload time buff. Moving on to the sword branch, Gladius is okay, but still not very strong as opposed to another upgrade like Diplomat. Gladius needs a bullet health buff of 1.3 times and a bullet damage buff of 1.05 times. Saber is the worst dread. I propose the following balance changes: a bullet health buff of 1.5 times, a bullet damage buff of 1.35 times, a reload buff of 0.8 times, a bullet range nerf of 1.3 times. This will make it an actually decent class while also having other upgrades as viable options. The next branch is the Centaur branch, starting off with Cerberus. The only buff needed here is a bullet health buff of 1.3 times. Other than that, the stats are pretty balanced. Minotaur is also pretty good, but needs a slight bullet health buff and reload nerf. Bullet health should be multiplied by 1.3 times, and reload time should be multiplied by 1.1 times. As for Siren, it needs a huge buff. The only quirk of this branch is the auto turrets, and they hardly do anything when players have good body stats. I suggest the following: 1.3 times bullet health buff on the base trap, 1.3 times bullet damage buff on the base trap, and 1.3 times all stats except for spray on the auto turrets. The last branch is the Droners. They are always seen as toxic, as either super hard to kill or an easy free kill with a few tanks. So the balancing here is not good for players because there is no medium zone where they are sorta hard to kill, but it is possible. Starting off with Assailant, the class is pretty balanced but requires more firepower when facing teams at close range and in need of immediate damage per second and bullet spam. I suggest a bullet health nerf for the minions of 0.7 times and a reload buff of 0.65 times. This results in faster drone spawning but weaker drones, making the class less of a camper sitting next to other Dreadnoughts and more trying to get into a brawl with some other tanks using the quicker reload time. As for Infiltrator, it requires an everything buff. Buff everything except for bullet spray by 1.4 times. The class is so bad that nobody ever uses it, and when people actually do use it, they die very quickly just from a couple of tanks. Another option is to give the tank piercing bullets, where the drones do not take damage from other bullets, but just by ramming tanks. This makes the tank somewhat interesting and gives it a new quirk to give incentive to actually play the class. As for the last class, Inquisitor, this tank doesn't actually need a nerf. Inquisitor doesn't need a nerf? What are you talking about? Well, it needs a buff and a physics change. The bullet health should be improved by 1.2 times. However, the physics should change so that the drones don't soft collide with each other, allowing them to stack a lot more, but hard collide. The way this will help is so that the drones cannot stack on top of each other, allowing tanks to have a fighting chance against a horde of Inquisitor drones. This also applies to Invader. The next branches are body upgrades, starting off with Juggernaut and Behemoth. They do buff the health, but this buff is absolutely useless because it is indirectly a nerf. The movement speed is nerfed, but the health is buffed. That is almost a downgrade, considering how slow Dreadnoughts already are. Let me explain. If there is a large group of tanks heading your way, and you are a Diplomat Behemoth, you will die quickly. The tanks will easily outpen your Diplomat bullets, and since you didn't choose another weapon upgrade or mechanism as your body upgrade, you can't do anything about it, and it is just a slow death. This isn't an issue with mechanism, so why would anyone ever pick Behemoth? There has to be something interesting about the class. I suggest 1.4 times regen, even when taking damage, so shield regen, 1.6 times health buff for Behemoth, 1.3 times health buff for Juggernaut, and a 2 times body damage buff for both. This makes the class somewhat usable instead of the useless tank it is at the moment. As for automation and mechanism, these branches are too powerful. There is no incentive whatsoever to pick another weapon class or a different body upgrade for that matter. I propose that 3 of the smaller auto turrets are removed and the main auto turret gets a bullet health nerf of 0.7 times. This way, Behemoth and Mechanism will both be usable upgrades. Okay, now that we've fixed the mode and restored it to its previous great state, how do we keep it alive and keep players coming back? Well, this will be with variations of the mode and also content updates and dev events. Let's talk about dev events first. Currently, there are not very many dev events in Arras. There's a few in Growth, Nexus, but it's not too often. If there is a weekly dev event, or even every 2 weeks in Dreadnoughts, and random modes that the developer decides to mess around in, this would revive the modes a lot more, and encourage people to play because they might see a developer playing. Okay, so now that dev events is out of the way, let's talk about content updates. There should be new Dreadnought weapons and new Dreadnought buddies. I've already made a few ideas for content updates, and will describe them now. The first extra class is an upgrade from Sword, which is for the Sniper Dreadnought. Sword only has 2 upgrades, as compared to the other branches which all have 3, making it logical that something should be added. I suggest Machete. It is a minigun branch which provides an alternative to the bullet spam meta of Diplomat and Appeaser at the moment. The main quirk of this class is the high density of bullets, but also high bullet range. It doesn't have as much pen or damage as Diplomat or Appeaser, but is still a viable option due to the reach of the bullets. The next class is an upgrade from Automation, which provides a different option from the Mechanism meta that exists at the moment. It is like Automation, but the small turrets are removed, and the big turret in the middle turns into a huge turret with low reload time and great bullet stats. There should also be another upgrade from Juggernaut, the Ram tank, that provides a huge movement speed buff but also a large health nerf, kind of like Colossus from Dreads V2. Another new class, although it existed in the first version of old Dreadnoughts, is the Healer branch, Medicare and Medicaid. These 2 upgrades were extremely broken and even healed the shooter. Let's bring them back, but in a nerf state. Instead, the Healer bullet should have a bullet damage nerf multiplier of 0.4 times and a bullet health nerf multiplier of 0.4 times. The bullets should not heal the person who shot them, only players around. These classes should be added back for more variety within old Dreadnoughts. Now, what if these classes were actually added? What would be interesting then? Why would players keep coming back when these new classes were added but nothing more? Well, to make old Dreadnoughts played all the time, there should be an arms race modifier to the mode for regular tanks. There don't have to be arms race Dreadnoughts, since Dreadnoughts are already quite powerful. It would be an interesting variation to the existing regular tank menu and encourage Dreadnoughts to stick together and work as a team to survive. Now, after hearing about all these changes that I'm suggesting, what do you think about old Dreadnoughts? Do you like the state that it's in? Do you think the old version should be restored? Please let me know in the comments so we can see exactly what the community wants. Give this video a like if you think the developer should change the mode to all the suggestions I just talked about. I'll be reading the comments and replying to every single one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. See ya.